pink shoes, and sandcastles. He dreams of a girl who hides in his mother's closet. There, only he plays. No one's invited. There he is known as she. He, as they call her, rejects on the outside what she feels on the inside. Blinded, emotionless against her persecutors, she hides, and it slowly gets dark underneath.
In the Bahamas, a country where religious doctrine and culture strongly grips the fabric of our being, there are people who live among us, buried underneath what many call the truth, the way, and the light. The irony, though, is that what's underneath sometimes cannot always remain underneath. Just as weeds grow out through the cracks, there is a silent uprising of those who do not fit into society's box of either male or female. This phenomenon, while still buried outside of society's box, has existed for centuries in many countries. New Providence, a diverse, high-paced island in the Bahamas, is no stranger to the gay and lesbian movement, as in the last decade or so, more and more Bahamians, once afraid to face discrimination and violence, are coming out nonetheless.
No! Marriage is between a man and
Bahamians are pretty much familiar with the term LGBTI, thanks to local activists speaking up.
Because LGBT Bahamians are citizens.
But lesbian, gay, and bisexuals are usually as far as they understand on that list. But there are other groups on that spectrum, we found, that live among us in a very dark space underneath.
I can't live the way y'all want me to live.
Many times I think about suicide and killing myself.
From a little child, I always felt like I was in the wrong body.
I'm human too. I'm not just above all that being transgender, I am human.
They would call me names like fag, homosexual, abomination, you it, she male, he she, cross-dresser, names like that which would make me want to kill myself.
They are transgender and intersex Bahamians, born with male or female sex organs that don't match up with the gender they identify with in their brains. Intersex Bahamians, on the other hand, are born with reproductive or external sexual characteristics of both male and female. These people, according to international experts, can remain virtually non-existent in a rich culture like the Bahamas because they don't fit into society's box as male or female. In the Bahamas, they are classified by the majority as sissies and are condemned to hell.
If you're a man, you be a man. If you're a woman, I feel as though you need to be a woman.
So do you think that they should have rights in this country?
No, hell no.
Why not?
No, this is not a gay country. This is a
Christian nation. It's a Christian nation. We might have our ups and downs, but it's a Christian nation.
Bring that spirit to us.
No.
That spirit, wherever that spirit come from, that spirit need to go back. Because this is the Christian age. We believe in God. We believe in one God. Not 10, one. And I feel as though them sissies were doing this bunch of foolishness. They need to be burned and cast into hell where they come from. They are voicing the snakes and the caterpillar. That's why I believe it's so hard, because of the gay people. They have the heat. Like, Jesus is so upset. He's so angry. I don't know what he's...
But our God is a God of love. Do you don't think that he loves them just as much?
No, our God is the God of love. The real love. That a woman should marry a man and a man should marry a woman. Not a man should marry a man and a woman should... That's not the type of love God ordered us to be. We are Christians. This is a Christian place, although I am not what I'm supposed to be. This is a Christian nation. You think it's right for me to bring up my daughter in a way for me? How to see me and a whole woman laid up in the bed. She have an interview to school and they say, bring your mommy and your daddy, or your mommy and your stepdaddy. Me and you stepping up. That's foolishness. That's nonsense. But I think it comes from the government of the Bahamas. He created all this bunch of mix-up what's going on right now.
This is the harsh reality that 21-year-old Felicity Smith and her friend, 25-year-old L'Oreal Gibson, live with as transgender women in this country. A reality that forces them to live in the underneath. The two, both born male, have a lot in common, but their journeys have certainly been different.
Ever since I was a kid, I was always feeling feeling this way, you know, and I couldn't hide it. Ever since I was 5, my mother, I used to dress up in a wig, lock the door, put makeup on, lipstick and stuff like that. And my father would catch me and he would be mad and angry. But my mother understand as me being young, my mother understand.
My mom, she's just coming to understand that she no longer has a son. I'm now her daughter, and she's starting to embrace who I am and stuff. As far as my dad, he's still trying to understand who I am. I'm not trying to impose my lifestyle on anybody, or I'm not trying to get every single one of my family members or every one of persons who know me to understand who I am, or, you know, that's for me to understand. And I don't need acceptance from everybody. Once you respect who I am, that's all that matters to me right now.
Felicity, also known as Peaches, had the opportunity to finish her high school education at an overseas boarding school after she says she was chased out of a local high school. L'Oreal, also known as Kiki, unfortunately didn't.
This is one time I was in school and I had this friend. I used to date girls too, but we're not here for that. And we know how to argue, and I took some pictures dressed as a female, and she took the pictures and she carried to school and she let everybody know about me, you know. And that really bring me apart.
Wow.
That bring me apart.
So, were you allowed to have an education? Or
No.
What happened? What happened with this?
That was in 9th grade. I never went back to school because I was ashamed, I was depressed, I was everything.
So you never went back?
No, I never went back.
Not only was Kiki deprived of her high school education, she, like many other transgenders, struggle to support herself.
I see a helping hand, but I want more. I want, you know, I want more than what I have now. I want to go back to school and stuff like that because I didn't get to finish. I want to get a job to help my family, my mother and my father, you know. I want to do so much stuff, but people in the Bahamas, they're like discriminating too much and stuff. I can remember this one time I went for a job and I give the lady the application and she carried it in the back, and when she bring it out, she started laughing, you know. I just take the application, I tear it up and I walk out. I mean, they treat transgender women like jokes, you know, and I don't do well with that.
I don't know what I'm going to.
The struggle to survive has a very dangerous dark side, even beyond prostitution and suicide.
And I don't know, I never know the outcome of every situation, but I pray God always guide, protect me, and keep me.
As we wrapped up her interview, a very vulnerable side of Peaches quietly spoke out as she revealed why she prays so hard every day for God's protection.
How do you get money now? What is your form of?
I'm an escort, and I'm a freelance makeup artist.
An escort?
Yeah, I'm a private escort.
What's an escort?
An escort is a woman who gives special services to man in need.
That's a service that exists in this country?
Yes.
Wow.
We have to survive in a country that is totally against us and what we're doing. And that's the only way you could get access to money and get the things that we need to do to survive.
This dark and dangerous operation exposes a blatant hypocrisy that we've come to find out exists across all sectors of our society. Her escort service is not cheap, but she certainly gets her share of high-end Bahamian clients who she says would never support her publicly because they are afraid of what society would say about them. Peaches, who hasn't had her sex reassignment surgery, is attracted to straight men.
Whether be he, she, or it. God made you a man, stick to a man. God made you a woman, stick to a woman.
You don't think they're born that way?
On to have women feelings, like, no, I don't think so.
But you talking about you born with man, and you used to born a woman, and you got man, mind, and all of that. That's foolishness.
What's the sense a woman trying to turn into a man just to get a girl, or a man trying to turn into a woman just to get a man?
Stand your closet and let me stand mine. If I go in my bathroom where you is, and you're a man, and I see you pulling out the thing, I might check you.
Whatever a person chooses to be or what life they choose to live is their business.
God created you a certain way, you should stay in. That's what I think.
Nobody have no rights to tell someone how to live, or, you know what I mean, to preach to them what they should do or shouldn't do unless they're a child. When you become an adult, you have a choice to make, and whatever it may be, you and I have to respect them.
Tell those people to get their head right and stop playing with God. They're trying to take God's job in their own hand when they do that. You understand me? They try to take God's job in their own hand.
I mean, after a while you can develop it, because if you be around a certain crowd for so long, eventually you'll just want to be like them, so it's a choice.
Satisfy how God made you. God made black and white people.
If it was me, I want a girl. Even if that come in my mind, I wouldn't try to get the best of me and do that. But I don't think that should be happening.
What I think about transgender people? Well, I have nothing against no man, you know. You see, each man have to face him judgment. Each man have to talk to him maker himself. And if a man decide to go in another body, feel rights. You understand? Feel thing, him have to do him thing, because at the end of the day, him have to talk to him maker about that. I just saw the thing set, I just said that right now, you understand? Peace and love we say every time. I just the thief and the murderer, I can't take, because you don't know when I your time. But everybody is good. So me say, you understand? I just saw the thing there.
Be you and be who you is. That's it.
He mind telling him something, the boy said another thing. Right. So, I can figure that out. But still, if you get the talkie, be the man, but stop thinking about man or woman.
We got mixed views from the Bahamian public. The majority appeared to be completely appalled by the very mention of it. Others said they'd never even heard of the term transgender, shrugging it off as being a gay, confused person. But according to our expert, Billy Curtis, a Bahamian LGBTQ director, who is also the executive director for Centers for Educational Justice at the University of California, Berkeley, transgenderism is considered the third gender in many countries around the world and is nothing new.
Human experience is infinite, so obviously that would be there. I mean, if we've had man and woman, we probably have had transgender. I think that we've seen manifestations of gender expression and different genders across histories and across cultures. For instance, in other cultures such as parts of India and Pakistan, where we have the Hijra, which is a third sex. We have indigenous cultures in the United States that where there are third genders, such as Two-Spirit. We have in Hawaii, we have the Ma'u, which means middle, which is a pre-Columbian term for a third gender. We have in Samoa, we have the Fa'afafini, which is another gender as well. So we have seen across a number of cultures, pre-Columbian cultures in particular, where we have seen more than just two genders being expressed.
Unlike their counterparts here in the Bahamas, transgenders in India are considered sacred, touched by God. Their communities across Southeast Asia date back more than 4,000 years before Christ, and they appear in ancient texts as bearers of luck and fertility. Most transgenders, better known as hydras, make their living by exchanging blessings for cash at traffic signals. With the help of hydras, reckless motors in the country are forced to buckle up. They call them the seatbelt crew.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए ये है वो अटेंशन प्लीज अगर पायलट के जैसे गाड़ी चला रहे हो तो पायलट के जैसा सेफ्टी भी चाहिए तेरी गाड़ी में ऑक्सीजन मास्क नहीं है कुर्सी के नीचे लाइफ जैकेट नहीं है मगर सीट बेल्ट तो है तो पहना क्यों नहीं रे मैं सिखा दूं क्या
In the Islamic Republic of Iran, homosexuality is punishable by death. Ironically, though, sex reassignment surgeries are legal and are embraced by society based on the deeply religious country's acceptance of the idea that a person may be trapped inside the wrong body. This so-called cure for homosexuality, though, has pushed many gay Iranian men into changing their anatomy to avoid death. According to a documentary entitled Be Like Others, Iran carries out more sex reassignment surgeries than any other country in the world next to Thailand.
Dr. Mir Jalali, a Paris-trained surgeon, is Iran's leading specialist in sex change surgery. He performs his sex change operations with the approval of the Iranian government.
In this country, though, where Christianity is upheld as the cornerstone, there is absolutely no special treatment or considerations on the table for transgender and intersex Bahamians. The only consideration for what the church has deemed an abomination comes from the one and only true source, the power of Jesus Christ.
He showed us the way. God will never ask us to do something that we cannot do. He commands us to consecrate our bodies, to sanctify ourselves, to live holy, to live clean, according to His standard, not according to the standards of this world. According to the standards of this world, anything goes. You can do whatever you feel like doing, and it's accepted. With the Bible, with God, it's different. We follow, we live according to His principles, and people are offended by the truth of the Word.
For activist Alexis DeMarco, the inspirational mother of the transgender and intersex community in the Bahamas, the truth of God's holy word is often, but shouldn't, come with words of judgment and condemnation from the Christian church against this vulnerable community.
Our culture has ensnared this with religion doctrine and saying, oh, we could pray the gay away. We could rakashanda and holomakaya and lay hands on them and this and that. But their relationship with God is so intact. Better than those that preach every Sunday. Better than those that sneak after church on Sunday, drink the liquor, play the number, and do whatever they do.
Bishop Walter Hanschel of Great Commission Ministries considers himself to be very tolerant towards the LGBTI community, unlike many pastors.
We need to have the discussion and see how we can help these people rather than judging and condemning and spewing out hate.
But does God see sex, or does He see the soul of a person? While he says he does not condemn these individuals, Bishop Hanschel maintains that the idea of people being born with gender variations cannot be accepted.
Even though this is what I keep hearing the transgender community say, I think it's a learned behavior. I think it's a choice that people make.
God don't make mistakes. Why do you think people would choose? Why would someone choose a life of hardship when you could come from a 2-story bedroom house in your family house, live comfortably, sleep comfortably, eat comfortably, go to college and get your school fee paid? But the minute you say, Mom, I'm gay, they cut off the financial assistance. They cut off all of these things. Get out my house. Why would somebody choose that? When you have an intelligent, successful child that you push to success, but the minute they be open and honest and candid with you, there's an issue. You know? So the hardships that they go through are not because of their own thing, it's because of who they are. And people not having an understanding of who they are.
I believe they have a part to play in our country, but we cannot condone the lifestyle in the same way that we will not condone the lifestyle of whoremongers and fornicators, adulterers. Every week in our country, we have churches, we have pastors all over this country preaching against every type of sexual immorality. But it seems as though every time we get to the point where we have to deal with the LGBT issues, then you get attacked. You're called homophobic.
Alexis has faced her share of homophobia as a transgendered female, although she is not a homosexual. Born a boy, Alexis grew up in a Christian home in the historic Fox Hill community. But the pieces of her life moved quickly apart. At a very young age, Alexis started to grow breast, a condition called gynecomastia caused by hormone changes during puberty in boys. But even outside of the fact that she had breast, she knew without any influence that she was really a girl.
It caused a lot of parental conflicts within my family not understanding, or they just thought they had a gay child. But it was more than that, because sex was not a part of my life. I wasn't attracted to a male. It wasn't finding a boyfriend or having intersex or having sex with a male. It was more of myself. Why am I feeling like a woman? Why am I this way? You know, sex was never the issue. You know, the parental conflicts caused a separation in my family. I left and went to the United States, and upon leaving to go to the States, I was able to find who I was with the correct doctors, with persons who identified as I was. Here in the country back then was drag queens, and I knew I was not a drag queen. I knew I didn't want to dress up and take this off and go to sleep and go walk around like a boy, or that was not who I was. It was a struggle, a suffocation inside of myself, and it was so silent till it almost cost my death, of suicide and just ending it all. And I said to myself, you know who you are. Why don't you just find who you are? And there were many times I had suicidal thoughts, and this voice just always said, I'm not finished with you yet. And that's what has kept me to this day. The voice that says, I'm not finished with you yet.
He wakes in the dark. He sees what others cannot. Trapped in the lock of society's box, no way out. He breathes and bleeds for freedom, for what it's worth. At least he can be she.
All girls have XX chromosomes, and all boys have XY chromosomes. At least that's what scientists had concluded for decades. But is this gender principle as clear-cut as we think in the Western Hemisphere? Francois Sousset, a doctoral-level psychologist and couple and family therapist in Montreal, Canada, maintains that gender is not as simple as the sex between our legs when we are born. She and other worldwide experts who work with youth and gender issues, say gender is between the ears. It's about how you feel about yourself.
So when we're born, people assume, based on our physical characteristics, that we're either going to be a boy or a girl. And what we know is that that's not a very reliable way to actually know about somebody's gender. Gender identity is actually a much more complex issue than simply looking at people's bodies and saying this is a male, this is a female. And historically and currently across the planet, we have numerous examples, some not so far away from you, in Mexico, in the Caribbean, and in other parts of the Americas, for example, where before colonization, before Europeans came and colonized the Americas and the Caribbean, we had a multitude of ways of defining gender. So it's actually a very natural phenomenon that we're just rediscovering and uncovering. But there are some cultures that haven't been colonized where we see a multiplicity of gender and where we don't necessarily assume somebody's gender based on their physical characteristics.
This phenomenon hits home for transgender teens in the Bahamas, like the ones you are about to meet. We cannot show their faces because they are minors. When their parents met them for the first time as newborn babies, they were pretty sure that 17-year-old Alexia Alfred and 16-year-old Christina Ramming were boys based on their assigned sex. However, they would quickly learn that there was something different about their little boys. In inner-city Nassau, most teenage boys spend a lot of time on the basketball court. There, competitive in nature, they flex their masculinity and egos as they discover who they are. Basketball is not the only thing that goes down on inner-city parks, though. It's a place that makes or breaks some youngsters, especially those who have trouble expressing the assumed male swagger.
You see, when Hubbard used to play back in the day, right, better have your helmet on if you don't play no defense. Right, you're getting crushed on there. Get down, protect your boy.
The basketball court was certainly not a place of leisure for Haitian Bahamian Alexia Alfred, who, in her own way, is championing the cause for transgender teens in her community.
Moi met you know, but moi même jano.
Alexia adamantly dismissed gender boxes since the age of 3. She knew there was something different about her. Although born a boy, she says she told her mother repeatedly that she felt trapped in the wrong body.
I just love to wear my mom's heels, clothes, hair, makeup.
Billy Curtis, a Bahamian LGBTQ director, who is also the executive director for Centers for Educational Justice at the University of California, Berkeley, says the idea of being trapped in the wrong body is common among transgender children.
We're finding that more transgender children are able to tell their parents. We have children as young as 5 years old. And again, they're insistent that they are, mommy, no, I am a little girl, not a little boy. They're persistent, they continually say it, and they're consistent, it's always that way.
Hi, my name is Jazz, and I'm a 13-year-old girl who just happened to be born in a boy's body, and I'm transgender.
You may hear or you may see on television or in movies, you think, well, how is a parent allowing their child to go, their little boy, as they may see it, how would they allow their little boy to go to school, some 8-year-old dressed as a little girl, would that harm them, etc.? Know that those parents have been dealing with that child from a very young age. And so that's one. So when you think about a person as an adult, if you're in a space, so 15 years ago when I was writing about this phenomenon, most trans people were coming out at a later age. Well, that was based on them really trying to measure up to the gender norms and gender expectations of the sex they were assigned at birth. And so, and then they finally realized they really can no longer hide, can no longer lie to themselves. It's too intense.
The world needs more love. An intense feeling Alexia, too, could no longer bear. One day, she finally got the courage to reveal her true self to her teachers and classmates, and it wasn't easy.
When I was in grade 12, I came out as transgender to my classmates and to the teachers, and rumors went about. And at that time, I was prefect in training, and so they found out that I was transgender and I was going to transition, and they told me that it is not tolerated. They stripped me and they told me that I was not a good leader. I was a bad role model for the young generation of the school.
How did that make you feel?
That made me feel low. I was very depressed, very suicidal. People would call me names every day, religiously and constantly. They would call me names like fag, homosexual, abomination, you it, disgusting, you creep, she male, he, she, cross-dresser, names like that which would make me want to kill myself. I usually go days home crying to my mom and asking her why I feel like this and why people are so judgmental.
Born a boy, 16-year-old Christina Ramming has a similar story. The challenging high school experience was already hellish at points. Then one day, it all turned for the worse.
At school, I was exposed by some females as a transgender, and the principal wasn't accepting of me, so he straight up said that he wanted me out of his school. I was stripped of my prefect duties because I was considered a bad role model. I was always out of class. They were trying to get me to go to therapy, conversion therapy, so that I could be a straight guy. So they would try to put their religion on me and say God didn't design you to be a female, you are a male. And I usually see 2 counselors, so I am always out of class. The first counselor went and he got all of my medical slips and stuff and was like, oh, so you were doing stuff from back then and trying to tell us that you are a virgin, which we know you're not. And I felt like it was really out of place for him to get my medical records because I didn't really share them with anyone because I didn't feel comfortable. And the second therapist told me that he couldn't help me because I have a problem.
We have about 100 years of research on trying to change people's sexual orientation, right? Who they love, who they're attracted to, and it doesn't work. So science tells us that it doesn't work, that you can't take those aspects of people away. You can repress them, you can make them ill with these treatments, but you can't change the fundamental nature of a person. It's the same thing with gender identity. So much so that there are laws that are starting to be passed against conversion therapy or reparative therapy, saying that it creates damage. So as mental health workers, what we want is to support people, to not create more pain. So when you send people to so-called therapists or to religious groups that say that they can change people's gender identity, people's sexual orientation, they can't. They're lying. And that's been proven over and over again. What they can do, though, is really destroy the spirit of the person. And this is what we're seeing. So after 100 years or so of trying to change people's fundamental being and realizing that it does not stand up, we do not have a single study in the literature where we have successfully changed somebody's sexual orientation or gender identity. We don't have a single study. Science does have to mean something at some point.
Christina's grades would soon reflect her low class attendance, and the bullying escalated.
I was once even called a he-she by a teacher. They would do stuff just to get me to break down, and there were some cases where I broke down and cried. Didn't have no one to help me up.
We checked into Christina's story at Doris Johnson High School. However, the school's principal, Jimmy Clark, would only say that no student has ever been deprived of their education at the school.
No matter what their status or their sex orientation are, we don't deny the child the right to get a good education. All we ask for them to do is behave themselves and do their work.
Christina maintains, though, that those basic requirements were not as simple. She was isolated by her teachers and among her peers. But unlike most transgendered Bahamians, Christina was able to hold on to some friends and family support.
So you plan to go back to the school?
Yes.
Why?
Because I feel like I have unfinished work and I would like to finish it just to let everybody know how strong I am dealing with all of this.
You need community groups formed of transgender people, maybe some health professionals that really get it, so that these kids can be safe somewhere and can get support somewhere.
Many days I've cried myself to sleep, to call some friend on the phone just crying because I really want to get my education because I intend to be a Spanish teacher coming out of school. And my grades aren't looking so good now because of me being chased out of school, so I can't even apply for a scholarship.
Both Alexia and Christina eventually want to undergo hormone replacement therapy so they can live their true identity. However, according to activist Alexis DeMarco, the mother of the transgender and intersex community in the Bahamas, hormones and access to general health care services in the Bahamas for transgenders is extremely challenging. Hormone replacement therapy is a form of therapy in which sex hormones are administered for the purpose of aligning a person's secondary sex characteristics with their gender identity or how they feel inside. Most trans women in this country are forced to self-medicate.
I don't have no other option because that's the only thing I could have access to right now. No doctor want to see us or they want to care for us and stuff like that because it's all inside the Bahamas. It's all about what people say and stuff like that. It's not, they feel as if that is all a joke and it's all a game and stuff like that. So because of that, I have to self-medicate until I could find access to get proper medical and health care. And I'm not going to let, because of what society say, stop me from doing what I have to do to be the woman who I am. Well, hormones soften your skin, breast development, and it's on fat distribution in all the right areas that you'd want it to go, and just making you feel better about yourself, basically.
But not all transgender individuals choose to alter their bodies or physically transition from one sex to another.
We have the World Professional Association for Transgender Health that regroups thousands of practitioners across the world and researchers and puts out guidelines for health professionals in terms of how to help people through transition. There are protocols for hormone therapy. It's actually a very simple process, the hormone process. What this document says and what these experts say is that gender identity and transgender people are not ill. There's nothing wrong with them. As I said, historically, anthropologically, there's been transgender people throughout the planet, and there still are in many, many cultures. They've been acknowledged and respected. So it's not a question of fixing, but we do know that when we can give people the means to adjust their physical reality to how they feel inside, they feel much, much better. And that is the treatment, the official treatment for what we call gender dysphoria, which is the suffering that comes from having that incongruence.
Dr. Francois Suzette has worked for over 30 years with stigmatized sexual minorities. She co-founded the Institute of Sexual Minority Health and is a member of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. In her work, she teaches that there are three important aspects of human beings. There is sexual biology, gender identity, and then there is sexual orientation. Transgender, she says, is independent of sexual orientation, contrary to what those in the Western Hemisphere believe.
Gender identity has to do with a very intimate relationship with yourself, with your gender identity, with how you feel inside. Sexual orientation is about who you love, who you're attracted to. Right? Two very different things. Again, on a continuum. So what we can say about human beings, and we can say that about most of nature, is that human beings are not binary. We don't have two sexual orientations, like we don't have two gender identities, and we don't even have two biological realities. We are on a spectrum. We are we have an amazing variance, and it's part of the richness of being human beings.
The story of David Reimer paints a cautionary tale that dismisses the idea that gender identity is a learned behavior. Two boys born as twins are circumcised, but the procedure results in a horrible accident for one of the boys. His penis was severely damaged. The distraught parents sought assistance from an internationally renowned doctor who came up with a very controversial idea.
Dr. John Money, a sociologist from Johns Hopkins University, who had a radical idea that boys could be raised as girls, that nurture was stronger than nature.
We've been stereotyped in our view of male and female.
And I thought maybe this was a possibility for David to have a gender identity that was definite. And so I wrote to him and he responded very quickly.
It makes it very exciting, don't you think, to live in an age of discovery of human personality this way?
Except Money was wrong, and Janet realized it early on.
I lied to myself. I pretended it was going to work. But when he was 2 years old and I put him in a dress, he tried to rip it off. Then I thought, oh my God, he doesn't want to be a girl.
David or Brenda knew he was different. He felt like a boy, looked like a boy, yet was dressed like a girl. And as David later told the CBC, he was teased without mercy.
The decision by doctors led to catastrophic consequences for both of the boys as they went through life that ended tragically, with both brothers eventually taking their own life.
Shame, embarrassment, to be forced to wear a get-up as a girl, and being ashamed and wanting to fall in an air crack and die.
Then last Christmas, David had a dream, and Janet feared the worst.
He had a dream. The skies opened up, and there waiting for him was his brother Brian and his grandma and grandpas, and many people that he described that he hadn't seen since he was 8 years old, that were there waiting for him. I knew then that he wouldn't be here long.
She was right.
Transgender advocates say the story of David Reimer is a clear indication that gender identity is not a choice, but instead what one feels inside. Advocates fear the intervention of doctors in defining gender identity when it comes to intersex children could already be happening. Alexis DeMarco says there are at least 50 confirmed intersex Bahamians living in New Providence alone.
The thing what really defines you as an intersex individual is having both sexual both sexual organs. That's the main thing that people equate. But it can start from breast, you understand? But people try to judge it based on they need to have two sexual organs, at birth. If they're born with a penis and a vagina, which one are we going to choose for the child? Which one are we going to... how can you choose for that child at birth when you don't know that child's brain? And it causes conflicts down the end of the road. The case that we're dealing with now, the conflicting case. Okay, the child's born intersex, but now the child is 18, going on 18. The child knows that, hey, I am a girl, but you chose this for me. Why do we do that?
Some people are born with an external penis, but inside they have female organs. How does God judge? In that sense, does God see that individual's gender, or does he see the soul? Like what is that individual supposed to do? They were born that way with two parts.
If somebody is intersex, both the male and the female sexual organs, I don't know how God would judge them. The Bible doesn't address that.
Yvonne Sawyer represents a classic case that gender identity has nothing to do with a person's sexual orientation. Sawyer, also known as Vicky, is a transsexual woman who is a lesbian. Born male in Canada to a Bahamian father and a Canadian mother, the 58-year-old is considered to be the first transgender Bahamian to physically transition from one sex to another. She spent the majority of her life as a man, battling how she really felt inside until she could no longer bear it. Eventually, a troubled Sawyer would reveal herself to her then girlfriend, who she eventually married and is still married to today after 29 years. Since her sex reassignment surgery, though, in 2011, Sawyer left the Bahamas for good, following numerous death threats.
I had to make up my mind that I was willing to die in order to live while I was in the Bahamas. And eventually I just had to move away.
Vicky's story opens up another harsh reality in this country. Like Sawyer, many trans and intersex Bahamians are forced to leave the country in order to live comfortably and pursue their dreams. Alexis Houston is one of them. Born Wellington Stewart, the son of the late Bahamian singer Wendell Stewart, Alexis, who has been living as a woman in the United States for many years, has had her share of success singing on stages across the world.
Sky, a shroud of darkness had me blind, stumbled in circles. My fear of failure tried to dry. Too afraid to look beyond to see what life could truly be. Never thinking there would ever be.
But the success has also come with its share of controversies. Time stops when she can be he. swag on fleek. A phenomenal man, phenomenally, her existence be. Underneath her soft skin, a roaring lion. She steps up like one of the guys. The mirror she sees will soon reflect the truth. The night has fallen in picturesque Nassau, and like any other night in paradise, the popular Al-Wak Key calls his guests to unwind. The Key reaches a diverse population that blesses outsiders with an authentic Bahamian flair. Authenticity is the anecdote that leads to clarity for this young entrepreneur who goes by the name Tones. He was born Aranique Bain, a girl who once wore dresses. But the girl who came to the children's home in Freeport, Grand Bahama, would soon realize that she was different.
I was actually put in the girls' industrial school for this same behavior. They rendered it uncontrollable. So I experienced a lot of hardship at a young age, and in school, of course, with guys them hitting me or pushing me down and stuff like that, and playing basketball and stuff. And then I started to wear my hair flat in school and shape up for in school time. So that wasn't really accepted. But I did it because that's who I wanted to be. That's who I am. That's just me. I can't live the way y'all want me to live. I'm a man, and this is what it's gonna be. And they told me to get at the house and stuff like that. And they feel like I slapped them in their face. They're not doing a good job as a parent, but it has nothing to do with that. It's just that this is who I am. And I just wanted to be happy. So I moved away from them at the age of 17 and came all the way to Nassau knowing nobody. So I was really destined and determined to do what I wanted to do.
At first glance, Tone says many people would often pass her off as a male. But that didn't stop the college graduate and successful business owner from the onslaught of hate and discrimination.
When I opened my mouth is when the insults and discrimination and people shouting at the car, oh, that's a cat, and all that sissiness and stuff like that. I was taken advantage of a lot. I've experienced more physical harm in Nassau than in Freeport because I had people that broke up my car, literally dragging me with the car and running and moving and stuff like that. And like you see scars and stuff still on my face from a lot of attacks and stuff like that.
Scars, whether physical or internal, last for a very long time and are often hard to erase. Tones, according to activist Alexis DeMarco, represents the damage that exists within this vulnerable community.
You don't wake up one day and say I'm trans. You don't wake up one day and say I'm intersex. These are not choices. These are people's lives every day. No questions. But it's up to persons who can medically assist them to understand and explain to the parents, and explain to the politician, and explain to the prime minister, and explain to persons of the hierarchies. It has to start up there to come down in order to reach the masses of the people, so we can stop our vulnerable community from laying up in morgues for suicide, HIV, being abused, being homeless, being mistreated, the lack of employment, because of our own personal beliefs. No one's taking your belief. But who are you to take their belief? Jesus didn't take your belief. Come as you are. You must worship me in spirit and in truth. How are you worshiping me if you can't even tell the person, this is who I am? And who are you to say, that's not who I am? It's a lot of issues.
Alexis's passion to save transgender and intersex Bahamians from falling through the cracks came to the forefront during a very controversial time in this country. On June 7th, Bahamians were to vote on 4 gender equality bills that received an overwhelming no from the Bahamian electorate. But prior to the referendum, the country for the first time ever would hear from a group of transgender women.
It has been said that there are no transgenders, like I said, or intersex persons living here in the Bahamas, but we are here today to show you that we exist and we deserve the same rights and respect as any person living in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Alexis says while her press conference may not have been timely, considering the outcome, the conversation certainly needed to be had. She has been advocating for gender identity education within the school system as well as on a community and governmental level. Her hope is that this would shed light on the need for education, better health care, and protection by law for this community.
We have not received information of anybody saying, okay, let's deal with this issue. Let's deal with this vulnerable community. They just equate it to HIV and AIDS. We are more than HIV and AIDS. We don't just acquire this disease. You understand? And I say we as an inclusive body of the LGBTQI community. Being HIV free at my age is an accomplishment because many persons don't have the restraint. And it's not about sex. They equate that, oh, all these gay people can die of AIDS anyway, they can do it. No, they're not. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're politicians. They're just like you and me, regular persons. But we have stigmatized them and classed them in this field of death and destruction. So why help them? They can die anyway.
Because someone is different from you, it does not mean that they should be made a foil or a scapegoat or should be demonized because of who they are. I mean, everybody's supposed to be treated with equality, with respect, and have entitlement to the rights which are offered under our Constitution.
Following the gender equality referendum, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the Honorable Fred Mitchell, spoke out in Parliament against what he considered to be a demonizing of the sexual minorities for a political gain.
Because I believe in a liberal democracy, because of the view about pluralism and tolerance, I am making a general appeal to our society not to demonize any group of people, not to demonize groups of people, and to step back from any language which would engender hate, whether intended or not. Martin Luther King said something that I repeat all the time. All that counts is the content of your character. The message of hate has gone forth, and they must preach love instead of hate. They must find Christ. And I ask myself, do these preachers, in the face of all this inflammatory language, do they actually look around and see who is in their churches? Do they actually look around and see? Do they look left and do they look right? Do they think if some of these people leave their churches, could they survive a Sunday service? I say, Mr. Speaker, preach love and not hate. Preach love and not hate.
He still maintains that position. With the continued negative treatment of our sexual minority groups, Mitchell says the country must be aware of the possible implications that can come from the international community as it continues to raise anti-discrimination campaigns.
Negatives apply in certain instances, particularly in the Western world, because we're a tourist country in particular. I mean, you saw what happened when the ship came here and the film that was made. I mean, it's obvious when you see the film, the Rosie O'Donnell film, I think, and the excerpt of the time coming in Nassau, it's a bit embarrassing to see that people responded to our guests in our country in that way. So, of course, one is hypersensitive about reputation and about the fact that you must be welcoming to people who are strangers, and particularly since we're a tourist economy and tourist country. So clearly one has to be concerned about image. That said, I think that generally, though, this is a tolerant society. There are pockets of this kind of homophobia and xenophobia, but generally speaking, it's a pretty tolerant country, and people say live and let live. And for me, at this point, that's good enough. If specific instances of harm occur, then we have the bodies, including the courts, you have the government, you have the opposition, you have the human rights organizations that are able to raise the hue and cry with regard to this. And I think that when we appear before these international bodies, like when we have the Universal Periodic Review, I think we were able to give a fairly good report compared to other countries on this issue.
This country's image as a touristic destination, rich with culture, is the least of Alexis's concern at this point. Her heart remains fixed on addressing social ills and providing a safety net for transgenders and intersex Bahamians who are cast aside by their families and left on the streets.
Alexis DeMarco, she's been really a helping hand to me and in the transgender community.
Okay. So how did she help you out?
Bring us out of our shell. Let us know that no one could ever tell us we're not females. Don't let no one run over us. You know?
She operates a safe house for transgenders with no place to go in a quiet area in the East. However, for the past several years, it has been a struggle to operate with little to no help from local organizations. One organization Alexis speaks of is PEPFAR, the United States President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. PEPFAR operates an arm within the Ministry of Health Victoria Gardens, but that is as much as we know about this local office. According to its international website, though, a part of its mandate targets minority groups like the one Alexis is fighting for. On June 9, 2016, PEPFAR announced the creation of a $100 million Key Populations Investment Fund to expand access to proven HIV prevention and treatment services for key populations. The fund, according to its website, will support innovative, tailored, community-led approaches to address critical issues and gaps that exist for key populations in the HIV/AIDS response. Internationally, it appears that PEPFAR is committed to its mandate. But in terms of its local response, unfortunately, we're unable to tell you what is being done on the ground to fulfill the organization's mandate.
Hello. They told me you're the boss of PEPFAR.
Manager.
Oh yeah, I'm a COB student. I want to get some information about two friends who too shy and too nervous to come in for themselves.
You need it now?
I mean, yeah, I'm here now. I just reached.
Well, I had lunch and something.
You know what I can talk to? In the office?
No, I'm the only one. You can wait or come back or call me.
I can't wait right now.
You can't wait?
No.
Yeah, I have to eat my lunch, so
been busy all day.
So you only even got no other employees that you talk to?
I don't know, clinics, maybe clinics, but I know definitely I have things on that. Come on, I can see clinics, but no. You need the information you can't wait.
I mean, I didn't hear, so I didn't feel, I mean, I don't want to come back. I could wait.
I think based on your face, that's all the check for me. We actually want a very pluralistic society where everybody can be who they want to be and live authentic lives. Because that way, we can, everybody can have equal access to everything. But in our particular case, our area is healthcare. Other people regarding human rights will be worried about other stuff. Education, employment, marriage, whatever. But our thing, and myself and in the health office, we worry about healthcare. We want them to have equal access to healthcare. Technically, the healthcare is available. However, something can be available, but it may not be accessible.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Our experience with the local PEPFAR officials was certainly an eye-opener and quite strange, as officials seemed to be more concerned about the fact that we were bringing cameras than why we wanted to speak to them about the organization's work. What was there to hide? While we will never know the answers to those questions, the fact remains, according to Alexis and the people interviewed for this documentary, that the LGBTI community is more than just HIV and AIDS. The fact also remains that healthcare for this community is paramount, as many transgender and intersex Bahamians are forced to do whatever they have to survive. While provisions exist to some extent on paper and through policy, the healthcare establishment in this country could go a long way in bringing this group of Bahamians from the shadows. Until then, most are forced to leave the country to receive the necessary medical assistance they need to live a healthy and comfortable life. Tones is one of the lucky ones to be able to afford the opportunity to live his true self.
Okay, Jones, this is the day, the big day. How do you feel?
Great. A little scared, but great. A bit disappointed that I have to leave to be who I want, but I'm excited. So it's a bit mixed feelings.
So what's the first thing you're going to do when you get to Canada?
Probably have a drink.